If you're spending your evenings and weekends doing client check-ins and you're handling more than 20 per week, then this video is going to help you to save 10 hours every week. I'm Henry and I ran an online coaching business, grew it to 10K per month and worked with hundreds of clients from around the world. One of the biggest bottlenecks that I experienced was working with 20 to 30 clients at a time, and all of the time that took in the week processing repetitive tasks. And I learned AI automation systems to help to handle the heavy lifting of that system, which got me 10 hours back every single week, and now I teach other online coaches to do the same thing. So let's break down the core problems of the traditional check-in process. Now, if you think about every check-in taking you around 10 to 20 minutes per client, it multiplies with every client that you add to your list. So 20 clients is 200 minutes, which is over 3 hours. 40 clients is 400 minutes, which is over 6 hours. And the vast majority of what you're doing there is actually processing the information rather than actually actively coaching the client. The second issue is around consistency. Every check-in often looks different because it's a different context, you're getting different responses, and often they're being sent to clients at different times. Plus, if you miss a client check-in, then churn rate's going to shoot up and you're struggling to top up those numbers with clients leaving on the back end. The third issue is quality. When you're processing 20, 30, maybe 40, maybe even 50 client check-ins every single week, and that's being done manually, your clients will notice, because the more people you add, the lower the service quality. It's just the way it has to be. And the last thing, what you want to find is that a new client's noticing that their quality isn't quite as good as it used to be because you've taken on more clients recently. And number 4 is scalability. You can't continue to grow a linear process where more clients means more time. Now, the solution here is what I call check-in AI, which is where you take an automated approach to this and you also triage clients based on the level of service that they need at any given time. So first thing we want to do is send out an automated message to your client to check in at the same time every single week. So this is where we want to have an automated approach. So an automated message. Now, there are a few ways we can do this. We can use things like make.com or Zapier to schedule this. We can use our own check-in add-in within our own training app. There's a few ways we can do this. I'd usually recommend, though, taking the system outside of the training app because it's going to unlock so much more automation potential than if you're locked into the tool you're currently using, whether that's Trainerize or Kahunas, for example. So I'll touch on that in just a second, but let's just talk through the flow to begin with. We want to have this automated and we want to have this the same time every week. Let's say it's 9 o'clock on a Monday or 9 o'clock on a Saturday, whenever you want to send it out. So let's say it's 9 a.m. on a Saturday. Okay, so the client's going to get sent that on repeat. If they're an active client, they get sent the check-in link every single week, and happy days, you haven't got to send it out manually. Particularly useful if you've got lots of clients. Step 2 then is we want to have a check-in form. Now, I would recommend using a tally form here. The reason why I like tally form is it's what's called a smart routed form. So depending on what answer someone gives, you can route them down different paths. So let's say someone's doing really well. They don't need as much support that week. There's no point in them answering all of the same questions as somebody who's really struggling and needs loads of support. You need more answers and more depth and more data from someone who's struggling so that you can prepare for the call you're going to give them than if someone is cruising, doing really well and just needs to keep doing what they're doing. So we're going to use Tally and we're going to use a RAG system, red, amber or green, because what that allows us to do, as I say, is route people depending on where they're at. So you might have a red score, in which case you don't want them to get just sailed through the same process as everybody else. So you don't want them to come to the bottom of the list as you're going through your check-in responses. You want them top of the list, the first person you respond to with lots of data and a link to book a call. So I'll chat through how this looks just now. Okay, so let's say on the form, someone's filled in and they are a red score for that week. Clearly what we want, if someone's a red score, is for them to be given more questions so we can collect more data around where they're at and then offer them a call at the end. So we want to have slightly more questions plus a call. And based on the answers that we give from this form, we can then route them down this path. If someone was an amber score in the middle, that's obviously where we want to collect a normal amount of information. Okay, so just the normal questions, but no call there. And I should just say that at the end of the form, this person's going to get sent the call link if they're a red score. Amber score then, just a normal set of questions, collecting some positives, collecting some challenges potentially to get a full picture of what's going on. If they're a green score and they're doing really well, crushing it, no need for you to worry, then we're going to have far fewer questions. And essentially we're just going to say, hey, keep doing what you're doing, maybe a short message of support, highlight the biggest success they've had that week, use it for social proof. We can obviously create an automation to extract that information too, but we allow that person just to sail through and not spend more time on the check-in form than they need to, because they're doing really well. They don't need to be spending lots of time filling in forms. They just need to keep doing what they're doing that week. So in step 2 here, they filled in the form. Depending on the person, they're going to get routed down a different path depending on the level of support they need, as opposed to everybody going through the same process. Okay, next step is we want to have an Airtable database to handle all of these check-ins coming in. So what we want to do is set up inside of Airtable, spelling database correctly there, a database. And this is going to have all of their key information. So who they are, their start date, all of their check-in information, what date they started, their payment information, every transcript from every call we've given them. It's for another video entirely, but you want to have a full database of each client. So at the click of a button, you can see every check-in, every payment, every transcript, every single date associated with them, and you get a full 360 view of that client. Now, all of that information is going to get filled into this Airtable database, and that means when you go into a particular view here, what we want to do is set up a ranked view. Now, without going into huge amounts of depth around how to use Airtable, you can basically create different views of data. So you can have it as a simple table, you can have it in like a Kanban format, you can have it in like a Gantt chart, depending on what kind of data you want. But in this case, because you've got a basic database of information, we can rank it automatically top to bottom for the week. So let's say you've got 20 clients, and going back over here, let's say that 3 of them are green. Let's say that 7 of them are amber, and let's say, do you know what, it's a crazy week and 10 of them are suddenly red. Worst case scenario, you've got huge amounts of clients really struggling. It makes more sense. Okay, so going back to this section here, within this database, what you want to do is rank these answers based on whether they are a red, an amber, or a green score, because you want to be talking to those who are struggling first. You don't want to be going through answering a green, then an orange, then a red, then another orange. You want to get all the reds answered first so that you can handle any particular challenges as quickly as possible. Then the ambers, and then the greens. So the good thing inside of Airtable is you can rank them top to bottom from this. It's going to look like this. So we're going to have in this database, red at the top, then ambers, and then green scores. And what that's going to mean is you can answer all of the top answers at the top, which are going to be red, then move forward, answer all of the amber scores, and then finally all of the green scores are going to get answered after that. So rather than just doing it ad hoc, answering a random green just because it came in first, then an amber, then a red, we want to make sure that we're doing it in a most logical sequence. So those who are struggling most get our support the fastest. Then what we want to do, the last step, is a check-in AI step. This is where AI handles the heavy lifting for us. What the AI step's going to do is 2 different things. Number 1 is it's going to summarize data. What I mean by this is it's going to take the context of that person's check-in information. Let's say we've got their weight. We might have their wins, challenges, sleep scores, stress scores, whatever data you want to collect in your context, whether you're a fitness coach, transformation coach, athletic performance coach. Once you've collected all that information, it can summarize this in context. So rather than you going through, let's say you've got 40 clients times by 5, 6, 7 answers is a huge amount of information that you've got to traipse through. By summarizing it, we have a paragraph to read that gives us a snapshot of that client instantly. It's going to say, green score, huge success this week, biggest win, nothing to do, nothing to action, for example. So you just know, cool, done. I'm happy with that one. I can send my answer back, make sure they've been acknowledged, that they've checked in with me. I've sent my message, which can be drafted in AI, as I'll talk about in a second. and move on, rather than reading every single person's response, every single answer they give. So it's going to summarize it. It's going to give us a nice headline summary for us of that check-in. 2 is a draft reply, and that's going to be trained in your voice. So that's really key. Once we've got the summary, and all of this is going to be stored inside of our Airtable database, we want to have the summary of that check-in, but what we also want to do is look back at previous check-ins. So if we to take this up a level, we can summarize this week's data, but also in context of the last 4 to 6 weeks worth of data. So what we could do is have the AI look back in the database, look at the last 4 to 6 check-ins, and pattern recognize. And it might say, okay, weight's dropping, it's been a history of certain sentiment, there's actually a similar pattern that's emerging here, so that when you look at the summary, you can see all of that in context, rather than you having to store this information in your head and think, what they're doing last week, was that good? What have I forgotten? Was there an event I've missed? Was there a key piece of information I've missed here? It won't forget, because it will look back at the database and it can extract all of that from the last couple of weeks, summarize it in context. And then number 2, it's going to draft that reply trained in your voice. You can feed it what you would typically respond back in terms of the formatting of your response, the tone of voice, the language, the sentiment you typically provide, any particular format that you want, and then an example from a green score, an example from an orange score, an example from a red score. And you can train it to do that. Now, I would recommend using Claude for this and not ChatGPT. The reason for that is Claude typically sounds a lot more empathetic. It typically sounds a lot more human, and it doesn't come across robotic, doesn't throw in as of jargon. It's just a better model for this type of use case. So once you've got this draft response, it's going to be listed out. So imagine you've got your database here with every client's response, all of their wins in a section, their challenges, a summary, and then at the end here, a draft response ready to go. So imagine you open Airtable, you've got all the responses, top to bottom, red, amber, green. You've got a summary of each particular summary of each individual check-in. You go into it, it's giving you context the last few weeks and what's going on, how they're getting on, and then a draft response from you, ready to go, trained in your voice. And if you wanted to make a few little tweaks before you send it off to them, you can do, not a problem. Or you can just copy, paste, done, happy to go. So in total, the difference added up across these different sections is probably going to be something like 10 hours per week. If we add up automated messages being sent, tally form data being collected automatically, database storage of information being collected automatically, AI summaries being created and draft responses being generated, and all of it being ranked top to bottom automatically for you across, let's say, 40 clients plus at, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes per client, just on responding, because you're having to read, you're looking at something like, was that 800 minutes? If we can then take away, now with that 10 hours, what that's going to enable you to do is obviously increase your client capacity. So you can make more money, take on more clients, because you're not bottlenecked by your own ability to compile, draft, and reply to clients. So this is how I'd recommend doing it, rather than the old approach of manually doing check-ins on Google Forms and all sorts of clunky information like that. Process it like this. Make sure you've got an automated message going out every single week at the same time, tally form to collect your data, Airtable to store it, and then Claude to process that from an AI standpoint. Now, the overall orchestration platform that I would recommend is called make.com. And what that allows you to do is this process. So you can set it up to trigger this to be automated. You can trigger as soon as someone completes their tally form, it gets stored in Airtable, it gets processed by Claude, it gets sent to you as a notification. All of that can be completely automated. So the difference is you wake up, look at your check-in database, you've got a summary and you've got a draft response ready to go, and you haven't had to go through every single person's information. I hope that's helped. If you would like more information on how you can automate your coaching business, click the link down below and I'll be able to. I hope that's been helpful. And if you would like more information, I hope that's been helpful. And if you would like more tips on how to automate your coaching business, click the link down below and I'm going to give you 14 daily tips to automate your coaching business to save you huge amounts of time so you can take on more clients without burning out or having to hire a big team to handle it for you.